want to be seen, then if they put themselves, the camera off. Can I just ask everybody just to put themselves on mute unless they're speaking. Welcome everybody. My name is Rifakat Ali. I work within the Bradford Council. I used to work in the Safer Stronger team, but for the last 9 months or so, I've moved across to the Safety Advisors team. But I was asked to fill in for Mahmoud, who fortunately for him, has gone for Umrah. Unfortunately for us, we're missing a chair. So welcome to everybody. It's going to be a really interesting and beneficial event for everybody. I think this is an event where we get an opportunity to ask our panels questions rather than just sit and listen to somebody else. It's part of the Race Equality Week. We've had some events already this week, and there's some more events coming up as well. And the Bradford Council, as we know, has got a Respect campaign. That is an internal campaign with a vision for all staff members, and we want to try to get as many staff members to participate in this as possible. So these events, hopefully, will try to encourage people to come on board and see the benefit of being an ally. So I'd like to hand over to James Drury, who is the Director of Partnership Development for the Bradford District and Craven Health and Care Partnership, which is part of the West Yorkshire Integrated Care System. So quite a long intro there, James. So I'll pass over to you. Thanks.
Thanks very much. So welcome everybody. I'm really pleased to be here with you this morning as part of Race Equality Week. And we've got plenty of other sessions that are going on as well. That are all worth taking part in if you have the opportunity. I'm really looking forward to hearing stories this morning and great experiences that people can share with us, that we can then reflect on what that might mean for us and how we might put those things into practice ourselves. So we've got three great speakers, three sets of great presentations this morning to hear, and then we've got a chance for a conversation with the panel. For my own part, then I work for the health and care system. I really want to do what I can to make sure that I'm supporting equality, diversity, and inclusion in everything that we do. And so I'm here to learn. I'm really here to listen and to learn this morning. And I would like to welcome our panel. So, Jodie, would you like to say hello first, please?
Hi, I'm Jodie Leach. I'm the Programme Manager for the Respect campaign.
Thanks, Jodie. And Shazia?
Hi, my name is Shazia Alam, and I am the co-chair for the BAME Women's Network at Bradford Council.
Hi, Shazia. And Shaista?
Hi, Shasta Akram, co-chair of the BME Women's Network.
Hi. And Kamran?
Hi, I'm Kamran Rashid. I'm the founder chief exec of Impact Hub Bradford, but I'm also a trustee of Bradford City of Culture Trust as well.
Thanks, Kamran. And Halda?
Hi there, I'm Lead Equality and Engagement Officer for the Chief Execs team at Bradford Council.
Thanks very much, panel. That's great to know who's here. We're in good hands there, aren't we? So next on the agenda is Jodie. But did you want to do a little intro first?
Yeah, can do. So I've got a few slides. So I'm going to share this. So if people can't see the slides, it's that usual thing with these meetings. If you can't see the slides, shout up. So let me just share my screen. Won't be 1 second. Can people see the slides? Perfect, thumbs up. The awful thing is sometimes when you share slides, you can't actually see people's faces. So yeah, so I'm Jodie Leach. As I mentioned, I'm the Programme Manager for the Respect campaign. And part of the Respect campaign is the Respect Allyship programme. And the purpose of the Respect campaign is to build, within Bradford Council, is to build an inclusive workforce where everyone can be the true selves at work. So part of that is, as I say, the Allyship programme, which this is the moniker for. So just taking a little bit of a step back to understand what respect is. So respect is a series of principles, which is also the acronym of respect, which stands for rights, equality, speak up, person-centred, education, champion, and think first. And those are the very core values of what respect is. And as I mentioned, respect is the internal equalities vision for staff within Bradford Council. So we're here talking about allyship. So what is allyship? So the definition there's two definitions on the screen, but I want to focus on the second one, particularly obviously because we're talking about allyship. So often now used specifically of a person who's not a member of a marginalised group, but expresses or gives support to that group. So that is the very core definition of what an ally is. And an ally can belong to any group or community, but allies themselves to other groups. So I'm an ally to the Root Out Racism movement that we're all aware of, and obviously it's part of Race Equality Week. So why is allyship important? So these are the 7 areas that came up. You know, I did a lot of research around allyship. These are the 7 areas that came up consistently from allyship schemes across the world. So the 7 are, so it promotes empathy, promotes behavioural change, boosts engagement, increases employee retention, encourages knowledge sharing, encourages teamwork, and supports networks being developed between colleagues. And those are the very core of what allyship programs are about, and very much about what respect is about. So we launched the Respect Allyship program in May last year, with a whole launch event with quite a lot of staff there. I think there were 120 guest speakers. And this is kind of what staff who sign up to the allyship program can expect. So every month we run training or awareness sessions, and the Respect allyship program is intersectional. So while looking at research of other local authorities, other organisations, often allyship schemes are developed, but they're to one particular protected characteristic. It could be an LGBTQ+ allyship scheme, or it could be a race equality allyship scheme. But the purpose of respect is that intersectional approach that covers all the protected characteristics. So the monthly sessions run via teams for staff. And the areas that we've covered so far are trans and non-binary awareness, race and language, introduction to mental health, misogyny in the workplace, disability awareness, intersectionality, and working carers. And the sessions that are coming up, so this month, in fact tomorrow, we're doing sessions around neurodiversity. There's going to be sessions around pregnancy and maternity, and in April and May, there will be sessions around religion and faith. So you can see that it has that intersectional approach. Each session that we run has a continual theme about how to be an ally to that particular group or community. It's really quite powerful, and people do share their lived experience stories. There is a paper version. So for staff that can't attend the sessions, we're completely conscious of the fact that, you know, people are very busy. We run 4 sessions over a month's period of time, so usually 1 every week. But if people can't attend, there's a paper version of the session that covers the salient points of each session. And the other offer is the staff get regular emails. So I have a whole distribution list of all the allies that have signed up. At the moment, within the council, there are 527 allies, which is over 6% of the entire workforce. So, and it's the numbers are increasing daily. So the good thing about being able to send out emails, I'm able to promote the wider EDI work that's happening, including things that are happening during Race Equality Week. So this, I just put on this. This is just to give you an idea, you know, some feedback from the allies, because I can sit and talk about, you know, this is a really good scheme, but this is actual feedback from the allies. I'm not going to read all of them. I'll share the slides afterwards. I'll read a couple of them. So Respect and the associated allyship program is one of the most significant pieces and positive pieces of work I've seen in 40 years working for the council. I love this programme, the best training I've been involved with since joining the council. Thanks to the team for making it happen. I find myself talking and reflecting about it outside work as well. So you can get an understanding that the impact for people is quite big. And there has been a lot of both verbal feedback and written feedback to say how people have applied respect in the workplace, both for themselves and for their colleagues. And I'll leave it there, so I'll stop sharing. So in essence, you know, we're talking about Race Equality Week today. In essence, the theme of this week is it's everybody's business. And I think that's really important. And that's the very definition of what allyship is. We talk about it's everybody's business. And we need to think about that throughout the year, not just for Race Equality Week. So this is why I believe allyship is really, powerful and really important. Okay, thank you.
Thanks very much, Jody. I was looking at Riffa, and I guess we were both thinking, are you gonna join the dots on this one, or am I?
Yeah. I'm happy to take
you go for it.
the speakers. Thanks, Jody. I went to the event yesterday, and I also went to the launch event back in May, and I found that really, really beneficial and useful. And I've got one or two questions as to how I can get involved a bit more as an ally. So I'll ask those questions during the panel question. So I'd like to introduce Shazia and Shasta, who are the co-hosts or the co-chairs for the Black and Asian minority group for women. I was a member initially of the what was termed the BAME network, and I wasn't aware until just this week that there'd been another group now set in within that. So Shazia and Shasta, if you can explain why that is and some of the experiences and difficulties you've come across.
Thank you, Rafaka. No, well, we've done a bit of an intro, but thank you for Zara for allowing us to come onto this platform to give the reasons. I think, like you said, Rafaka, one of the things we were asked is why a BME Women's Network? Why can't we be part of RESIN, the Race Equality Network? Why can't we be part of their Women's Network only? I think there's a lot of research. I mean, I've got a brilliant report. I'll put the link in the chat later on. But there is a lot of barriers, a lot of issues you face as a BME woman. And I've been in the council over 3 years now, and very early on, I mean, a little bit of background to myself. I did engineering at university 20 years ago. I faced sexism on my first day. You're a girl, you shouldn't be here. It was arc welding we had to do. It's like, wow, why can't girls do the same thing? That was my first experience of facing sort of like sexism. And then I went to my first job I did. There was racism, when they looked at me first, I never used to wear the hijab or anything, and they didn't know who I was, so they thought my name was, what was it now, Natasha, my name was, or Sonia. When I told them my name, they were like, okay, so are you, what are you Islam? I'm like, no, I'm Muslim. Complete change of people's perception of me, attitude towards me. Anyway, fast forward, coming to Bradford Council, I had a lot of experience in the BCS sector around management, and I wanted to kind of do a little bit of sort of qualification to back me up, to kind of help me progress. There were a lot of obstacles that I faced. I mean, I've got there now. I'm doing my master's that is funded by the council, but there is that sexism, there is that racism, we can't deny it, there is. And so for a BME woman, you're not just facing, sexism being a female, there's racism on top of that as well. So there's like, so double whammy. There's Dr. Joanne Myers, she's a nurse, OB, she said that, white women in general, there's a glass ceiling. For BME women, there's a concrete ceiling. And I absolutely love that because it's totally true. There is a lot of more barriers and issues that we are facing. So the whole network is to set up to support and empower BME women, because we do have additional barriers, additional issues that we're facing on a daily basis, which not only impacts the career progression, but mentally, physically, our emotional well-being, our physical health. It takes, it can turn for the worse. We've met colleagues who've had a lot of issues. So to have this network and to be able to be their voice, providing the support, provide them the right sort of people they can go to for support. Any senior managers, I think it was essential. We are very much part of the resin group. We love the women's network group because we can learn from each other, but I think it merited its own group in terms of the sort of different issues and the additional issues and barriers we have to face as BME women in the workplace. I'm not going to take over all of it. I'm going to pass it to Shaista now.
Thank you, Shazia. Just to go over something that Shazia said, I think one of the reasons why we were kind of really adamant to be part of or set up this network was because of personal experiences, and I think a lot of us who are chairs and co-chairs of the network have done so.
Sorry, Shasta, I think we're getting some feedback in the background. Are you in a...
I do apologise. I'm in a shared area.
Oh, okay.
I'll be quick.
No worries, no worries. Okay.
So I think it's come through personal experience that we ended up being part of these networks. And I think one of the things that I've quickly realised is that there's going to have to be a lot of kind of opportunities for people to have safe spaces, to be able to share their experiences before any work can really happen. We've had one or two, but the issues and the stories that have come out of that have really kind of shown us that we need to create this level of trust before we can move forward, before any work can really take place. And so over this year, that's one of the things that we'll be doing.
So I just want to add on to that the whole network is very, like I said, very much about empowering BME women, and we will be setting up a host of training sessions, probably on a bi-monthly basis, where we can provide someone senior as a role model, because I think role models are quite essential, especially up in the sort of senior level, to sort of provide their experiences, their sort of what they faced, what empowered them, how it worked for them, who are their sort of mentors, because I think mentorship, sponsorship is essential for anyone to progress, and for BME women. Additionally, we need them role models, and also how do we, because I mean we have this whole intersectionality of the race and the gender we are, but then we have the imposter syndrome as well on top of it. So we have there's so many issues we are brought, and when I look at the workforce, the statistics in Bradford Council, majority of the workforce is based around about ages 40 plus. Now, if you look at that generation in particular, look at our upbringing, I can even talk for myself, but you're brought up as a female that you are kind of like a little bit more submissive. You have a patriarchal household that you live in. Your father decides everything. If you do voice anything, if you're opinionated, you say something, you're very confrontational, you're argumentative. There's so many issues, and then obviously they resonate as you grow older. So when you, for example, myself, when I've sat in an interview, I feel really awkward trying to sell myself, because I'm feeling, oh God, I'm bigging myself up. I just feel odd saying I'm good at this, and I've got this attitude of saying we as a collective, but you have to sell yourself. And I think that humbleness that you have, you kind of brought up with, it kind of comes in, it resonates. So you've got to break that barrier and say, this is me, this is what I'm made of, have that confidence. But to build that confidence, there's many steps there's a path you have to follow. It doesn't just come to you automatically. You've got to break them sort of mental barriers, as I call them, that you have, you've been brought up with. So yeah, so this is, like I said, the group, we are here to support any BME women and anybody else in general. We're here to provide that guidance, identify senior leaders who can support us, and have an ally. Like Jodie said, it's all about allyship. And we can't say it's been perfect right for us. We still have issues. We still face a lot of sometimes it's very black and white. You see the discrimination. I don't want to go into that. I want to talk more positively what we're here for. But we are here to listen to anybody who wants to come to us, share their stories, want that support. We are very much here, and we are an ally. Thank you.
Thanks, Shazia. Thanks, Shasta. And what sort of membership have you achieved so far? Are you finding? I've seen a big difference between where I used to be based in the Safer Stronger team, where most of the people, most of the staff working in that team were aware of what was going on around the council, generally speaking, were more inclined to participate in activities and networks like these. And I've moved across to another department, which is part of HR, but surprisingly, people are very reluctant to go outside their space of whatever their profession is. And there seems to be a big difference in attitudes between where I was and where I am now. And do you find that in across the council that is certain services you're not getting much in terms of membership from, and is that something that we need to try to identify and try to reach out to?
It's something we have voiced out, Rafaka. We have said that sometimes we've got some brilliant responses from the sort of director level, senior level, but it's not been cascaded or filtered down to sort of like middle managers. And so we've had staff emailing saying that they're not able to come because managers are not allowing them. So that information very much depends on how active your own managers are, how active that department is, how it's getting filtered down. Is it being implemented? There is that gap there, and it's still very much there. You know, in many departments, we try our marketing, we've done the BradNet, but some people don't have access to the internet, or their timetables are such that they just don't get time. By the time they finish, they don't have time to go on the internet and check what's on BradNet. So yeah, there is that piece of work still need to be done.
Okay, I've got some more questions, but we'll leave them to the panel section. And I don't want to be the ones that was asking the questions all the time, so we'll open this up as well. I'd like to now invite Kamran Rashid to give us some reflections on the networks and also how he and his organisation have supported the Asian women and some of the initiatives he's been involved with as well. Kamran?
Thank you very much, Rafaka. It's been an absolute pleasure to hear Jodie and Shaista and Shazia speak about their experiences, and hopefully I can add some value to this conversation as well. So the first thing I'll do is in the comments section, I've just posted a link to our website. It's an article we put on our website about 2 years ago to celebrate International Women's Day, and it gives you a little bit of a sense of some of the stuff our organisation is doing. But I'd just like to start off firstly from a personal perspective, then from a professional, and then give you a few examples of what we've done and some of the tips we can share with the listeners on the call today. So from a personal level, I'm a father of 2 daughters, so that really matters to me, to see a city and a district that is supportive and removes the barriers for women's progress and success, and for women to be able to realize all their potential. And I think I want to see my daughters be successful in this city and grow up to see this as a city where they believe they can be successful as well. And also, due to my connections with my wife, my sister, the closest person growing up to me was my sister, and it was a female role model in my life that supported me through my challenging times. On a professional level, at Impact Hub Bradford, we're a part of a global network of 109 hubs, but I'm a co-founder and run the one here in Bradford in Little Germany. Our core belief here is run by the Sustainable Development Goals, and our #1 priority on the Sustainable Development Goals we follow is SDG 5, which is gender equality. And that's backed up with SDG 10, which is about reducing inequality. So a lot of the thesis of Impact Hub Bradford is driven by the Sustainable Development Goals, and SDG 5, which is a commitment from the whole global network, not just the local, is about gender equality. And I think that is something we really drive home and promote in the work that we do, and it underpins our thinking in the way we design and develop programs and deliver programs. Couple of just references for you. So we're a social enterprise, and primarily we do support a lot of social enterprises. Interestingly, social enterprises are more likely to have female leaders both at executive and board level than any other legal structure of organizations, which is fantastic. And social enterprises are more likely to have racially minoritized leadership at executive and board level than any other organization as well. So CICs and social enterprises are supportive of this agenda, first thing. Second thing, this is really interesting, women-owned businesses contribute £105 billion to the UK economy each year. They have the potential to contribute an additional £250 billion if women started and scaled the business at the same rate as men. and only 39% of women feel confident they have the skills to start their own business, compared to 55% of men. And that was from the Alison Rose Review of Female Entrepreneurship. So there's a huge amount of benefit for us to be great allies and support women in the work that we do, even just from an economic perspective. Now, the Alison Rose Review, the work we did on 6th of June last year, Alison Rose actually chaired an event here. Alison is the chief executive of NatWest Bank, and she did a roundtable with us here. And her big agenda is around supporting female entrepreneurs in the UK. Now, a couple of things we've done and some lessons we've learned in the way that we've supported women. So the first one is, some of you may be familiar with TED Talks. Impact Hub Bradford holds the license for TEDx Bradford. And in 2019, we did a sellout event of the TEDx Bradford. Now, one of the great successes for me that day was that we had a really diverse set of speakers on stage. And we had, for example, a hijabi woman and a number of South Asian women. Now, why that was important is, I think it was Shazia that made the point earlier on about seeing people who look like you in positions of power and influence, so you can aspire and see them as role models. But also, when we do events, if you have a speaker on a stage that looks like you, it attracted an audience. So our audience, we had a lot of South Asian women because they saw speakers that they could relate to on stage. And there was a number of women that came in that wore a niqab. And the niqab is what covers the whole face except for the eyes. And I was so proud to see that they saw that as a space that they felt welcomed and invited, and it felt relevant to them. So number one tip is about, when you do events, you do programs, think about who stands on stage, who is the speaker, and how do we make sure we have more role models that reflect the communities that we want to serve. That was number one. I think the second thing is, we run a co-working space. So on the other side of this wall, we have an open plan space where anyone can come. We have a zero policy towards any behavior or any conversations which may make anyone feel uncomfortable, including women. So none of that kind of boy chat, or, what's the word, that toxic locker room conversations. And it's something that new members and new team get spoke about, that we don't tolerate that kind of conversations which could make other people feel uncomfortable. So it's about creating an environment and a space where all communities feel safe and welcomed. I think the other thing about being a good ally is that if you do hear something which you think is wrong, which is problematic, it's racist, it's sexist or anything, I think being a good ally is about calling that behavior out and saying, actually, no, this is not something that's tolerated or respected or accepted. I'm mindful of the time now. I could go on and speak for a long time, and I'm going to respect Rafaka as the chair. I'll quickly make a couple of points. There's a couple of examples of people we supported. There's all these examples out on our website. So people like Fozia, who used to run a cycling organization supporting South Asian women. We connected her to a mentor from Adidas on a global mentoring program. We had people like Madhya, who support South Asian women in arts and culture. We helped her legally set up her company and get some of her first contracts. Our board member includes a South Asian woman who's on the call today, Zara Niazi, who's been a great support to me whilst we've been launching this. Our co-founder, we had Mandeep, a Sikh woman who helped us launch the company. People like Sobia Bashir, who launched a South Asian cookbook from here through the support we give her, or people like Asma Al-Badawi, the global ambassador for the hijab, has received numerous interventions and support through us. I hope you guys have found this useful. I will stop there, Rafaka, because I'm mindful I've had my 5 minutes, but I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Kamran. That's really interesting, and carry on with the good work. We do have also Khalida Ashraf, who's with us. We didn't allocate any time for Khalida, but it's only fair that we give some minutes to her. We are running a little bit earlier. I don't want you to put you on the on the spot, Khalida, but if you do have anything that you want to say, you've got a few minutes before we go open it up to the panel.
All right. Well, firstly, thank you for having me on the panel, and it's been really inspiring to hear the other speakers about talking about the Allyship programme, our BME Women's Staff Network, why they came about, how they came about, and their continual, efforts to meet the needs of BME women, to encourage them and empower them and support them to progress. And Kamran, I thought your examples were really quite powerful. I know Madhya and a couple of the other ladies that you mentioned, and I know how positively they've gained from your support and being part of the Impact Hub. In terms of the work that we do in the council, I mean, obviously my role is strategic, but if I could just mention a couple of the initiatives that we work on. So the staff networks, I mean, we have a BME Women's Staff Network, but in total now we have 7 staff networks. We have a race equality staff network, one that looks that is specifically set up for carers, LGBTQ+. We have a disability staff network. We have a women's staff network. I think I've probably mentioned them all now. So they are all working and progressing at different levels. They have decided, what work they wish to progress on. And then my role strategically is to make sure that that work happens. So, for example, one of our staff networks, the Disability Staff Network, have actually created a delivery plan which looks at IT, it looks at accessibility, and it looks at HR-related issues. So some of my work has been to support those conversations and make sure that what they say will make their working lives better is something that then is taken forward by the directors and the ADs in those areas. I mean, because we are in Race Equality Week, it's also just really a joy to see events like this happening all week, and how we've worked with our other VCS partners in putting these together. So organisations like Race Equality Network have been instrumental in helping us put these kind of events together, and it's really good that we're able to stand with them and work with them on these issues. Race Equality Week is an opportunity for us to raise the profile of what race equality actually means, how we incorporate that in our daily working lives, whatever sector you're from, whether it's public, private or voluntary. It is a really important facet. It's really important in terms of how we work in Bradford. We couldn't ever not work on race. I think the one thing that I would like to just maybe mention and use a minute or so to talk about is intersectionality. So Shazia touched on this as well. There is, there is a lot of discussion going on, and rightfully so, about how we look at intersectionality. So whilst we think about individual sort of like equality characteristics and how we are making sure that they're not being discriminated against, and Kamran, you alluded to this in kind of, in having a zero tolerance policy on, for example, banter that might make anyone feel uncomfortable. The whole purpose and role of intersectionality is how we look at how those equality characteristics overlap. So, Shazia mentioned that the employment, when you look at the age groups, it's kind of like a 40+ age group. So we are talking about the intersectionality that might cut across somebody that is female, BME, and of a particular age. Or it could be somebody that is LGBTQ+, and female or male, or they may not wish to define themselves in those particular terms now, but they may also have a disability. So it's really about, encouraging the thinking of individuals not just being identified as a protected characteristic. All of us are a combination of those, but what we need to appreciate when we look at the intersectionality is what factors are disadvantaging them or can disadvantage them more. And I think, those are really key components of some of the strategic work that we look at within the council, and certainly the work that we will be going on to deliver from here onwards. So I think I'll leave it there, but I just wanted to mention the whole notion of intersectionality. Rafaqat, have I effectively utilised the 3 minutes you've allocated?
You have, yes. Yeah, you've been very good, right up to the last second. Thanks, Khalida. I'm going to open this up now for the participants to ask questions. If they can raise their hand, either physically or using the IMO on this on the screen. I know James had a couple of questions that he put in the chat. So if I can just ask James to ask those questions of the panelists, please, James.
Thanks very much. Yeah. So wow, I've learned loads there and picked up some really important key points. I've jotted a couple of things in the chat just to try and give people a bit of a heads up, so I wasn't springing things on you. But Jodie, the work of the Respect programme sounds great. Tell me about how you think we might spread that so that people who are not within the council might be able to learn from it, emulate it, join in with it, please.
Yeah, so actually I'm having a conversation with Bradford University as we speak, so that's really positive. So the actual building blocks of Respect can be applied for any environment. You know, I think that's one thing that's really important to say. So looking at the Allyship programme, the very principles around what the Allyship programme stands for, like I say, can apply to any workspace. And to be able to actually apply that to another environment, so the NHS, the university, is a fairly simple process in some respects. Something I will say, and when I say this, I don't want people to go, oh, why, that sounds a bit wrong. I actually do the Respect campaign. I have a substantive day job, so I do it as well as my day job. So the reason I mention that is because even though it is a lot of work, it is doable within the work environment. So if you have, across organisations, if you have somebody that leads on the qualities, that obviously there is capacity and availability for somebody to be able to apply that into another environment. I often spend probably a day a week, working on Respect. And the good thing about the Respect Allyship programme is you can tailor it as your environment and as your organisation. So I mentioned earlier on that we do monthly sessions. So we do monthly sessions, and the sessions are run by people across the district. So it could be somebody from the voluntary sector. We've mentioned Race Equality Network. Race Equality Network did the session around race and language. They did a really good job. It was fantastic. But you may, and as an organisation, you might want to run them every 2 months. It can be tailored to any organisation. And just to kind of add, and I'll finish it there because otherwise I'll end up talking forever. I had a conversation just tentatively because somebody approached me from a bank, and I won't name the bank just in case, from a bank, and said, we've heard on the grapevine you've got this piece of work. And I explained what we were doing. And they went, oh, we can apply that to our environment. So it kind of proves that it can work in any environment, any environment in any organisation. Does that answer the question for you, James?
It does. Thank you very much. Rifak, I'll not ask another question because I just want to make sure everyone else gets a chance.
Thanks, James, and thanks, Jodie. There's a question from Mary. Question is, have other minority women, for example, the African community, women from the African community in Bradford, been involved in any of the activities, and are we also encouraging them to participate in the networks as well, or in that particular network? Shazia or Shasta?
I'll let Shasta cover because Shasta was part of the Black History Month last year, so she was actively involved in that. So I'll let Shasta answer this one.
Hello. Yeah, it was really good to have the allyship from the resin group. There was a lot of shared values in carrying out that event, and it's really popular. And I think many people saw a lot of, they could resonate with the speakers, so it was really, really good. Yeah. I think one of the questions was how could we create a better environment? We have found just having a safe space really has meant that people gravitate towards us. It's a really small group at the moment. We're talking about 30 participants or members so far. But we hope by having joint activities with the other networks that will help to improve our profile a little bit.
Thanks, Shasta. There's a question also from Catherine. Catherine, do you want to just ask a question directly, or do you want me to read this one out?
Yeah, I can do. So I went on a bit of a ramble there in my chat box, but I'm a member of the race equality group at the hospital I work in, and also at the University of Bradford school that I'm teach in. And I do feel like there's like a difficult balance to get between ally members and members who are part of the protected characteristic that you are trying to support, because if you have a big group of allies, they might be an echo chamber going, oh, how great is this, we're trying to be allies. It becomes a bit, you know, it can be a bit superficial, but also we don't I personally might not feel comfortable saying this group needs X, Y, and Z doing in the organization, or they're feeling this way, because it's not my view. It's not, I don't come from that group, so therefore I might not feel comfortable putting that out there and going, we need to change this prayer room in the hospital, when it's not me using it and I don't have the full information. So my question, and then if you have too many members of that protected characteristic group and no allies, why should those people from that protected characteristic do all the work? Because it's not their, it shouldn't be their problem. It ends up being their problem, but it shouldn't be their problem that these inequalities or these issues are arising. So my question for everybody who organise the like race equality groups is, how do we gain members for the network from both protected characteristic group that you're trying to help, or obviously assist in moving forward and dealing with issues, and allies? Because, for example, I am very keen on race equality work. I emailed the race equality group at my hospital and said, oh, do you mind? I am open to helping you guys out if you need anything, and I'd be really keen to, you know, anything you want. And he went, well, you can be a member of the network. And I went, oh, well, am I okay doing that if I'm not part of that protected characteristic group? And he was like, yeah, that's what we want allies in. And I feel like sometimes people are maybe scared or don't know that they can fight for something that might not look like it's their problem, which I hate that terminology. So sorry, summarize. Question, how do we get allies and protected characteristic people into our networks? I'll stop now.
Anybody want to take this one up?
I'll
Jody.
go from the allies point of view. Just to mention, Catherine, I'm also the co-chair for the LGBTQ+ staff network. So I've got a kind of almost a dual role. So I lead on a staff network, one of the 7 staff networks in the council, but I also lead on the allyship programme. I think one of the important things is that, you know, I think, you know, what you've described, you've done the right thing. You've asked the question to say, what is it I can do to support? I think that's where sometimes the line gets blurred, is, you know, people that aren't part of a particular protected characteristic or that particular protected characteristic do that thing of going, I think it's called saviour complex, where it's kind of like going, I'm going to do as much as I can, this and the other. It's asking the question about how you can support. And I suppose one of the things about allyship for me is, you know, is putting yourself in somebody else's shoes and understanding how they feel, and being part of, you know, asking that question to say, what is it I can do to support, is that first step of, you know, almost the pinnacle of what allyship's about supporting a group that you not necessarily belong to, but asking the question to say, well, what is it I can do to support, and encouraging other people to do that as well. That would be my answer anyway.
Thanks, Jody. Khalida?
Yeah, I completely back everything that Jodie's just said. I mean, I think for us in the council, just to address some of what you were saying, Catherine, it's very much about allies supporting people from a particular protected characteristic that they are not part of, but supporting them in something that they are already saying, you know, this is something, you know, that I feel passionately about, or even it's things like when you know, a lot of people are very well meaning but just don't know how to express and feel that awkwardness of, you know, oh, I can see that there is something going on that is wrong, but because I'm not of the same protected characteristic as that person, it's not really my place to say, you know, but that the well-meaning part of them is the part of them that actually wants to do something. So the allyship program that we run, that Jodie heads up, is very much about giving people the confidence and the knowledge through the information sessions to be able to do just that. So it's not really about them, you know, like acting on their own observations of what would be better for a group, but it's really about working with that group to support them to make the change that they say will be beneficial for them. So it's a slight nuance on, I guess, what you were saying. But through our allyship program, what we do is we encourage people, you know, for example, to be able to support people, you know, if they see discrimination in the workplace, you know, to check in with that person, even if they don't feel they can challenge it at that point, they can still have a conversation with that person afterwards to say, I noticed this happen, are you okay? You know, and I think there are lots of different ways in which we can be allies to each other, you know, but I just think a program, you know, like the one that we run in the council is what gives people that knowledge, that understanding, and that confidence, you know, to be allies. Where, you know, the other thing that I just wanted to mention was some staff networks will encourage allies to be part of it and some won't, because they will want that space for that protected characteristic, to have that protected space to talk about. But you know what, there is no reason why you don't develop allyship groups that meet, talk, you know, like share examples, talk about, you know, what's worked for them and how they've, you know, and what success they've managed to gain through being allies and what it's meant to them. You know, some of the comments that Jodie shared, I think, are reflective of that.
Thanks, Khalida. Shazia had a hand up. Shazia?
Yes, sorry, Khalida's kind of more or less touched on it, but I think allyship personally from a network point of view is someone who can support someone who with a protected characteristic. I mean, a lot of the times we've picked up in the network is staff who have protected characteristics are afraid to speak up themselves. They're afraid of any repercussions. So having an ally who doesn't have a protected characteristic sometimes gives them that encouragement, positive sort of support that there is someone here who isn't discriminating, who isn't, you know, based on my protected characteristics, not discriminating, but supporting me. I think it's a positive thing that we need to encourage more, that you don't have to be part of a allyship group as such, but to be an ally, to be a supporter of your colleagues. I think that should just come naturally to everybody, that if you see any form of discrimination, put a stop to it. If you are confident to speak to the manager, take it up with the manager, you know, because that person might be afraid for X, Y, and Z reason. So I think we need to encourage it in any workplace that, yeah, if you think you've heard someone saying the prayer room's not fit, but they're afraid to ask just in case, why not raise that point? You don't have to mention the names, but say it's come to our knowledge that this is not fit for purpose. So, you know, I think it's a great initiative for everybody to be an ally, whether they're part of a group or not.
Thanks, Shazia. And I think it is really, really powerful when you do get somebody from outside a particular group supporting that group rather than people from within. You know, I had an example when I was in Sir Henry Mitchell House. It took us 2 years to try to obtain a prayer room. And once we got the prayer room, it became very easy then for other people to support us, and then there was a separate prayer room provided for the women as well on a separate floor during the COVID lockdown. And then we found that it wasn't just as we know, because the Muslims have to read their prayers 5 times a day, so therefore we're more in need of a prayer room during the working days than other faiths that don't have fixed times for their prayers. But then we found that people from other faiths and people with no faiths were also using that quiet space for their own purposes and to benefit from that facility as well. So I think it is really, really important. James, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I think this might reflect some of the things people have already said, but it's about it's everybody's business, isn't it? So there needs to be something visible about showing everybody else that it's okay to join in and be supportive, even if that's not a group that you're directly part of. And it's also about the actions, about what you do. It isn't about kind of wearing a badge or being in a meeting. It's about what you do. So I guess that it depends on who you are and what your job role is, etc. But what the opportunities will be for you to be able to do things that are supportive. Completely understand and agree with the comments that people have made around, you know, this isn't a leading role, this is a supporting role, but equally you need to be aware of what opportunities you've got to act positively in support of others and to make use of them. So I think those things are important, and there's, you know, kind of never missing an opportunity. So I might embarrass Kamran a little bit here, but in terms of this notion of building trust and understanding of people, you won't know this, but my dad and his friends visited Bradford. They're from Huddersfield. They visited and they were walking around and they were a bit lost. And you'll never guess who found them and not only pointed them on their way, but also gave them a quick lesson around history and culture and pointed out various things in Little Germany. Kamran did that. So, you know, this isn't all about what you have in your job title. It's about what you do in every bit of your life, isn't it? Just to sort of build trust and understanding. So thank you.
Thanks, James. Well done, Kamran. Shasta, have you got your hand up? You're on mute, Shasta.
Sorry. One thing I just wanted to say is once we had our group up and running, one of the not issues, but one of the things that we noticed is there was almost two groups within our network. We had people from African and Caribbean backgrounds. We also had ladies from South Asian backgrounds, and it was almost two kind of networks within one. And so what we quickly realized is there's some work to do around allyship between these two groups, because one felt they weren't connected to us because they felt that it was maybe a South Asian women's group, which is not. So there's some kind of workaround to do with commonalities between the two of them, and how we can start building the allyship between these two ethnic groups, which is going to be interesting to see kind of what surfaces from that.
Yeah, it'll be good to hear. Yeah, hopefully you know, everybody pulls together for the common cause. But obviously each community and each group within all these networks have specific needs and specific you know, obstacles that they need to overcome within the council. There has been one or two questions. One from Natasha was wondering how to get more involved in being an ally. Jodie, could I pass that over to you?
Yeah, that's a really simple answer. So anybody in the council could be an ally. All they have to do is email respect, and it's all capitals. It doesn't have to be, but respect@bradford.gov.uk. It's on the global list. Just say, I want to be an ally. You'll be added to the distribution list and you'll get all the links to all the training that's coming up.
Thanks, Jodie. If anybody wants to ask any questions, I know the panelists and the speakers have been asking the questions the most, but I would like to get other members of the other participants also to ask questions, please. So if anybody's got any questions, don't be shy. You know, no questions. Sometimes we think if we ask them, might feel a bit strange asking this particular question because everybody should know this, but no questions there not to be asked. So anybody want to ask questions? We've got a few minutes yet. In the meantime, Jodie, obviously I mentioned that I went to the launch event in May, I think you mentioned, and then I've been on a number of training courses online, and I went to an event yesterday as well in MMT, but I wasn't really sure how do I then become a bit more involved in some of the in becoming an ally. But also in addition to that, I think also it's important within our own groups or the groups that we associate with to become mentors within those groups as well. Especially people, it's been mentioned that an average age, you know, our staff members are over 40, so there's lots of experience there. Obviously, we're getting new people within the staff memberships as well. For example, I would just give you an example. I was over in one of the services late last year because I had some involvement in getting a prayer room in Sir Henry Mitchell House. There's quite a large service. I'll not mention where it is, but they had a significant number of Muslim people within staff within that service, and yet they were struggling to get a prayer room, and yet nobody was willing to go forward and ask the senior management within that service to, just because they feel that maybe of their position within they might be frontline staff, they don't have senior positions within services, so they're a bit more reluctant to ask questions, where I'm sure if they'd ask a question, they'll get the the opportunity to get the facilities that they want. So I think it's important, as well as being allies to groups that you're not affiliated with, but also being mentors within groups that you can help as well. So is this part and parcel of the same thing, Jodie? Is this a separate entity?
I think it's part and parcel of the same thing. I mean, we've talked about the staff networks, so there's kind of two aspects to this. We've got 7 staff networks in the council, and I know other organisations have their own staff networks. And I think, you've just given almost the perfect example where you've been an ally and been almost an advocate to say, perhaps, it's providing a voice to other people that perhaps feel uncomfortable doing that. And, I mentioned in the presentation, the S of respect is an acronym, is speak up. And speak up isn't always just about, right, that person's being discriminatory. Speak up can be about saying, this isn't fair. There's people that, perhaps because I've been here a long time, or I've got a better relationship with these people, I can speak up on their behalf. And I think your examples just there is just perfect. So, the allyship sessions, as part of the allyship program, are there to, the intention is, and I think it was mentioned, a few people have mentioned this already, is to understand how to be an ally to that particular group or community. So it's not just about, oh, here's some kind of stats, or here's some figures. It's about lived experience. It's about how to be an ally to that particular group of community. And it's also about how people can just speak up a bit more. And the feedback from the allyship program, I won't name names, but the number of people that have come back to me now and said, oh, I overheard this conversation in the past, I wouldn't have said anything, but now I went over to them and said, do you want me to support you? Or do you want me to speak to your manager? The number of people that have spoke up for themselves as well, is incredible. So, it's showing a quite significant culture change about people having a voice, which is what we're talking about here. It's about having a voice and using that voice in an effective way.
Thanks, Jodie. We are coming to the end of the event. First of all, I'd like to thank all the speakers and the panelists for giving their time and the presentations, which have been really, really good. I've learned quite a few things that I need to be really focusing on myself as well, how I can help others. And I'm hoping that the people who are participants within this event can also then think about how they can become allies if they're not already allies, how they can support the groups, the networks. And also, I think one of the things I have alluded to this earlier is how do we try to reach to those staff members who are not, who don't have the facilities that we have. Maybe they don't have access to a PC or a laptop. They may be frontline staff. Maybe they don't get the support from their management to give time to these sort of events. And so I think there is a fair bit to do for all of us. But I think, over the last year or two, we have seen a big change within the council, and I think, we are heading in the right direction. So I would like to encourage everybody to participate as much as they can, to support the networks, and also, make some targets and some objectives for themselves for this year. If it's maybe to attend a number of training courses, maybe to support a network. So again, thanks, James, Jodie, Khalida, Kamran, Shasta and Shazia, and everybody else for participating, and everybody have a good day. Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.